I'm pulling up the discussion points from.
All right, fellas. You could say it's the calm after the storm. Between Two Sheets, Season 2, Episode 11.
Sitting here in the wreckage.
The wreckage, the remnants.
The remnants of curling.
The remains of curling for the cure.
Yeah, they had a good time. And I didn't catch, did you guys know how much money they raised?
We have not
counted the singles yet.
Yeah,
we got a whole.
They're still drying out from the juices that were on them.
You should have seen the tip jar, though. The meat raffle went well.
Oh, yeah? Did you take home anything in the meat raffle, or were you exempt from entry as a male servant?
No, there was no meat raffle.
Oh.
I meant the tip jar.
Well,
again.
they had a raffle.
They did have a raffle.
Yeah, was it 50-50?
Yep.
50-50, yeah, silent auction.
Anya Douglas won.
Oh,
and
okay.
I think they drew right after she went home, actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and
I
left her
was
here.
peeking through the silent auction sheets that were left on the bar up there, just looking at how much things went for and how much action there was on it, and I was impressed. Every one of them had at least like 4 or 5, bids on it, and it looks like things went for good prices.
I didn't happen to notice who won the Between Two Sheets donation.
That was a raffle one.
That was
Yeah,
a-
that was the-
yeah, that-
that was
So I don't know how they
door
did that
prize type
raffle.
thing. They just dropped tickets.
They dropped
in bags
tickets
each
each
one
Oh,
drew.
okay.
but I didn't see who got it.
Yeah.
No, it was a good Bonspiel, though. It was a good turnout. Team out of Williston took home the championship. They actually curled one of the newbie teams, which was really fun to see them have a good weekend.
Well, and
as
I didn't realize that's the same Monday night girls team
Yep.
that we've mentioned on the pod a number of times. So
Yeah.
they've come a long
Their
way. I
guys
don't think
came
they're
along.
They got
listeners.
all the
but
way
we're
to the
impressed.
championship.
Yes.
Viewers.
It was impressive. Beat out a couple of very experienced teams.
Yes.
so.
Well,
They did.
I think they left the score up on there too, if it was the right match.
Yeah, they went
It
to
looked-
extra
it looked
ends.
to me-
Extra end.
Yeah, they went to extra ends, but they stole 3 to tie, right?
No, it's the other way.
5
The other
and
way.
6?
It
Oh,
was
the
the
Williston team stole 3 to tie. Oh,
in the
okay.
last
So they had
end,
an
yeah.
early lead.
Yeah,
Okay.
they jumped out to a quick
Exciting
lead.
game though, having that to tie it.
It was, and I think I can confidently say that all the patrons had a great time.
Yes.
Yeah.
They go hard.
I only saw one video and it was a conga line.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good summation.
Yeah,
but,
they had fun. They ran us bartenders.
We're pretty exhausted.
I've never been this tired in my life.
there's some bleary eyes here.
Yeah.
So, do we have any other updates?
Other than that, no. Winterfest is a couple weeks away. It sounds like registration is full.
Registration is full, but it might be worth reaching out just to make sure that it went through. They did have some form problems, but it's full unless we can get a whole grouping of 4 more teams.
Oh,
if there's
okay.
enough interest, they'll add more. Otherwise, it's full.
So please contact, and I know there is a wait list too if
So,
somebody
yeah,
drops
if
out.
you're on
So
a-
contact
yeah,
it on the wait
you're on a
list,
wait
and maybe
list.
we can just add another 4 teams.
Expand it a little bit. That'll be fun to see.
That would be
Yep.
great.
Because that's a fun bonspiel to play in.
Yeah, and they help us out, and we help them out. It's a
Yeah.
good cause all around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Another new update. We got a new receiver, so our sound system's now
Yes.
Bluetooth.
Finally blew it out yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's had a good life.
I see also that the trash was empty when they were setting up, and now it's heaping full. So I got to tell Brad to call and get the dumpster changed.
Yeah.
Take off the trash, Brad.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know. Military League going good?
Military League's going great. Well, this kind of leads us into who we're going to interview today. I've been reaching out to more clubs to see if we can find some other military curlers in the United States, and no real luck there yet. But what I am finding is that there are military curlers. There just is a lack of established leagues. So hopefully, a year or 2 down the road, we can get some traction with that and have my military championship vision. But the curlers themselves, we had potluck last week for a Tuesday. So we decided week 3, 6, and 9 are potluck weeks. We had great turnout for that potluck. I know you guys were here for part of it and you saw it, but I was super impressed. And when I was heading out there a little early, because I've got people trained now for closing that I can trust, so I didn't have to stick around till like 9 when they wrapped up. And I stopped them all and I was like, hey, just wanted to say thanks for all your participation and enjoying the social parts of the sport too, because that's what makes curling great, is the social aspect. Most of them are on a team with people they see every day too, so they get a lot of that as well. But meeting people you wouldn't normally talk to, I met people at it too and struck up a bunch of conversations. Had a great time at the potluck. So yeah, they're doing well. So yeah,
Good.
That's all I got.
And youth curling's been good.
It's been good. We're I think we've got through all the fundamentals so far. Now it's just kind of refining the skills. And one of the parts that we weren't quite sure on, it's just kids' age, weight, and strength. So we're figuring out who needs to be on the reduced sheet. We have our hack halfway down the ice for the younger kids, and then we have some older kids who are strong enough. But takeout weight's a bit of a chore. We're finding out that's when you don't weigh very much, it's a lot of work to get the rock to the other end. So
No, I was watching them up here too, and they really have come a long way in a short time. You know, they look good coming out of the hack, and they're hitting lines. You know,
they're hitting
their
lines,
handles right.
like,
you know,
they're understanding what I'm calling out for signals. They're getting the handles right. They understand the scoring. It's really at this point, it's a bit of a game of strength.
So on the youth curling note too, our Carter Medved interview, you know, he participated in a bonspiel at his club, Ardsley, over there in Scarsdale, New York. And what they did is they had 3 experienced curlers, and every 3 curlers took 1 junior curler, and then they did a bonspiel. So I don't think we'd want to do a bonspiel, but I would love to try and do something like that with the kids, like an end of year thing. Get some club members in, and then throw them on a team with other curlers, either 1 or 2 of them. I think that might be great. So something to mull over for you
kind
guys
of like
there.
the fun spiel concept.
Yeah, like a fun spiel. We could play like 2 short games, you know, give them prizes just for coming out, and then, you know, we want to vet our curlers that sign up to help, you know, not a bunch of yahoos, but even if they are, you know, you can have one of those on a team. That's part of curling too. So yeah, some things to look forward to.
Yeah. All right. Well, like you said, we got a good guest coming on today.
So we're going to interview Dan Lindgren with the Grand Forks Curling Club.
Yeah.
Should we give him a call?
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Let's dial him up.
Okay. Here we go.
It'd be awkward if we just got voicemail in the middle of this. It'd be our entire podcast just gone.
The magic of editing.
Hey, fellas.
Dan, how we doing?
Doing well, thanks. How about you?
Yeah, doing good.
Good.
We were giggling through our interview, you know, or our intro. We had the women's spiel this weekend. They do a one for cancer charities, and so we were giggling about the recap. So I just got through that, and ready to go now.
All right, good deal.
Yeah.
So how's things going out in Grand Forks? You said you had some curling going on the ice today, and now you're just settling in, catching the end of the football game, and.
Yeah, so Sundays we kind of to try to get new curlers engaged. As you know, we start curling early in the year, probably about the 1st of November, and we're not done till about April. So I always make the joke is that for somebody new, it kind of feels like getting married, right? It's quite a commitment. So we try to break these things up a little bit by having mini leagues. So our mini leagues are on Sunday afternoons, typically about 5 o'clock. This one is, and they'll go for 5, 6, 7 weeks, kind of depending on how the schedule works out with with Christmas. And this year we're going to shut one off at the Super Bowl, so we have one prior. And then we always seem like we had people that kind of got interested after Christmas, and they missed that first little window in January, so it was hard to get them into something at that point. So we're going to do another one starting kind of toward the end of February and doing that. And then for the last number of years, UND has had an intramural league. So we have a draw at 5 o'clock with this mini league, and then we have a UND intramural league after that on Sundays. So Sundays kind of become a bit of a busy day here.
How big is that intramural league?
So it varies, right? And there's only been a handful of the kids that are the same kids twice, you know. So I think the biggest year they had, we've got 4 sheets, and they shut it off at 8 teams. And so that was full. This year they only have 5, but it works, and we're happy to do it still. And lots of 20 enthusiastic young people, so that's a pretty good deal.
Are the people participating in that, or are most of them from around the Midwest here, the Dakotas, Minnesota area, or are you getting people that transfers from down south or further away, that are interested in it? Do you have a main demographic that you find is more interested? Good mix.
I find it's all of the above, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's some kids from the south that have always heard about curling and want to give it a try, and then there's some local kids here that maybe did our junior thing, and then they're in college now, and so they'll grab a few buddies and do that. So it's all over the board.
Sweet. Well, I guess start out here, interview Dan. I don't know too much about you personally yet here. I would love to hear, how you came to curling as a sport, and how you came into leadership at the Grand Forks Club, and kind of what the story is there, if you wouldn't mind backing things up. And
well, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to do that. So I am what I refer to myself as a filthy immigrant to the U.S. I grew up in Canada, and there you go. And I moved to the U.S. in 1997, and I actually moved to Minot at the time when I came down, and new job and stuff like that. So I didn't curl a ton when I got to the U.S. and I traveled a fair bit, and so I never got heavily involved in Minot curling club, and then I ended up moving away from there a little bit later. But I curled my whole life. I started curling when I was probably 10 years old, and then curled through high school and college, and then did a little bit of competitive stuff up in Canada with some guys that I grew up with, and that was a good time. And then, as I say, once I got to the U.S., I had a little bit of a break there. Curled bonspiels and stuff in Minot, and then I moved to Billings, and there was no curling there. And then when I moved back to Grand Forks here in North Dakota, then my kids were the right age to kind of get going on it, and so we started curling. They did, and I did, and then I ended up getting involved in the junior program with them, and then we curled. My girls and my son all curled competitively through juniors, and they made it to nationals quite a bit. And so it's something that you kind of you hear a lot, and you're talking to people, and you just kind of get roped into this, and then you start to imagine that you enjoy it, and then years later you can't believe you're this neck deep in something like this.
I always thought it was interesting how Montana just never seemed to adopt any of the ice sports. I mean, you just draw a line at the border, and
they got skiing though. They got all those
they have skiing.
hills,
I mean, maybe that's the reason.
Yeah, they've really done well now with all these arena clubs, right? So Billings didn't have anything there, and that was 20 years ago when I left Billings. But I believe they have an arena club now, and then in the Dakota Territory, they've actually expanded the North Dakota one. You guys probably know this as well as I do, but to include Montana, and there's clubs all over the state now. I think I saw Havre's got one going now too, and all those places, to your point, that are pretty northern but never really got going on this seem like they are now. So
well, and I know on the Montana note here, a fun one, we sent a team out to was it Billings or was it Butte? I think it was Butte. So yeah. Butte has an arena club as well, and they contacted us looking just for teams who are interested to come support their new club and go to their bonspiel. So we sent a team out there, and they had a pretty nice time. It's arena ice, so they didn't have a big clubhouse and stuff, but had a nice time curling, and we're actually returning the favor, and they are getting a bus together, and I don't know their bus route, but they're going to hit up 4 arena clubs in Montana and then come to Minot here, and we're going to do like a 2-day or a 1-day little bonspiel with them.
Bozeman, Billings, likely, and
yeah.
I don't know if Sydney has one or not, but
yeah,
I haven't heard of Sydney having one. I know Bozeman does, and
I don't think Sydney does.
And a few of those places.
Yeah, Billings does, because one of my teammates, his parents were in the arena club there. But
is it Helena? I want to say maybe Helena. Has one too.
It might have been Havre or something too.
Yeah, Havre.
There was a few towns that were involved there.
Yeah, no, it's good to see that happening though. That's kind of been a feature on our podcast. Is we've talked to a number of different locations that have arena clubs that are either transferred to dedicated ice or trying to, in some way. And I think it's great for the sport. Starting it up. It's hard to start up a dedicated facility, so you got to have that transition. But
yeah. Right, for sure. No doubt.
Now, Dan, I'd like to ask, because I'm also a filthy immigrant, as you put it. I moved down to Minot in 2012 to go to college, and then picked up curling shortly after. So, where did you start curling? Where's home in Canada, and what was your home club?
I'd never hear the end of it if I didn't say this in the proper way, but I grew up in just a little town called Dupereau, Saskatchewan, and it's a 2-sheet club, and it not much there in Dupereau, even at the time, and there's even less now. But I went to high school in Bigger, Saskatchewan.
Okay,
and then,
right on.
And then so that's there's been a lot of curlers come out of Bigger. Sandra Schmerler and Anita Barber was our neighbor growing up. They won provincials when we were kids, which was a huge deal. And it was 3 girls from kind of right in our area that won that. And then Anita, her name is Anita Silvernagel now. So she's the mom of Robin Silvernagel, who's done pretty well women's curling in Canada. And Anita she curled her whole life, obviously, but I don't think she did it that competitively. And then now as a senior, she's got in it, and they've won like back-to-back worlds, I think like 5 times now. So I see they're getting inducted to the Hall of Fame in Canada. So that's pretty cool from our little town with as many people that have done as well as they have. So.
How did you say the name of the hometown? I think it was Bigger, Saskatchewan, where you went to high school.
Yeah, Bigger. It's Biggar.
Yeah, home of the Hansen Buck.
Oh. Well, I was going to say when I'm in the U.S., the only reason anybody here knows Bigger, Saskatchewan is the Hansen Buck.
Yeah,
exactly right.
And they had Hannigan's as well. I remember eating at Hannigan's in Bigger.
Yeah, they haven't had Hannigan's in a long time, but was a big deal when I was a kid to be able to go to Hannigan's.
Yeah, I grew up in Minton, Saskatchewan, is my hometown, so probably a very similar club to what you were used to curling in, just a little two-sheet Quonset. And the closest Hannigan's we had was in Radville, so we'd have to go a little north to get Hannigan's, but made some trips out that way.
What is a Hannigan's for the uncultured?
It's just like
restaurant,
kind of a fast food diner type of deal, but
a knockoff of a McDonald's sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I was thinking like a A&W, like a little a little higher class like fast food. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's cool.
And then so Dupro, our curling rink burned down when I was a kid, so they built a new one, but probably in hindsight it was a mistake because just there's no people there, even at that time. So and then so Bigger is kind of where we sort of started, kept curling. And then I see now they had some structural damage from some snow, and so they're closed right now. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Hopefully they can get it figured out to get the place back operating. So kind of a sad deal from that regard.
Feel you there.
Yeah, I don't think you guys got as much snow in April of 21, but we got 4 or 5 feet, and that actually took out our chiller. So snow damage,
Okay, yeah, there you go.
150 grand later.
Yeah.
It was just nice that it happened after our season ended.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah, because they've lost their whole year for this year. So
that's really unfortunate. Well, my father-in-law, I married a Canadian gal, since we're on the topic. He lives in Redvers there, and their membership dropped so low this year they decided not to have a curling season. So yeah, it's kind of sad seeing the small town curling dry up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So in Grand Forks, how many league nights do you have? I mean, you mentioned a couple of the leagues. Your intramurals, are you going something every day of the week, or?
So we're curling now. We're curling 6 days a week. So that it's a bit of an exaggeration because we've started a league on Friday nights, and it's a doubles league. We're not doing mixed doubles; we're just doing doubles. And we're selfish a little bit here in that we schedule it around the Sioux hockey game. So if the Sioux are in town, we don't have the league.
Makes sense.
And if they aren't, we do. So that's our 6th night. So it's probably more accurately 5.5 to be fair, but yeah, it's there's not many days where there's not something going on. So
well, it's good to see, and good registration, I assume, too, being out in Grand Forks. I mean, that's always been a town that's had a pretty rich curling history.
Yeah, and it's when I first got to town here, it was this. I mean, I think a lot of rinks are the same way. I didn't have anything to do with it at the time, but I know the guys that were on the board, they would talk about how they all had to pay their dues like the first meeting just so you could get the power bill caught up and stuff like that from the summer. And there wasn't, I think when the flood was on, they were down to 70 members after the year after the flood. And then, so this year we cracked 300 for the first time.
That's great.
And we've got, we got three draws going on Monday, 2 on Tuesday, 3 on Wednesday, 3 on Thursday now, and the 2 on Sunday. And so really, we've got room for 2 more teams on Tuesday afternoon, and that's the only space we have available other than finding even more draws at different times, So that part of it, in terms of the interest and all that stuff, I feel like that's gone pretty well.
So maybe a dumb question here, but so you said you had 3 draws. You do 6 end games then? Pretty standard for leagues?
No, we're 8 ends.
You're 8 ends? Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so on our Monday nights, that's I'm making quote marks with my fingers as I say competitive. It's not like it used to be in terms of, we're not going to say, no, you're not good enough, you can't curl. If there's an empty spot,
yeah.
And we always, the adage always uses, the only criteria you need is for your check to clear.
Yeah, competitive but not high performance necessarily.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then, so we play 8 ends there, and I'm not going to lie, it gets to be a little bit of a struggle to get it done, and so we really kind of taken it upon ourselves to just sort of make sure people understand that it doesn't need to take this long. And I get you want to talk about your last shot for a few minutes. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But we just waste so much time in the early positions when those rocks could be on the way, and save some time there so that you could do some of that stuff. So now we do like that Tuesday afternoon league. It's 6 ends. The Thursday afternoon league, we started at 8 and then we switched to 6 because it just wasn't getting done on time.
Sure. You must have a 9:30 p.m. draw then or something if you're doing 3.
Well, we got a 6:30 and an 8:30 are the 2 later draws. And then we've got a lot of afternoon stuff going on.
Oh,
so we
okay.
have Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and Thursdays at 4:30, and Tuesdays at 5. And so people are sneaking out of work or something, but doesn't seem like it's been too too difficult to fill those. The Thursday one, we just added it this year because honestly we just didn't have room to put anybody anymore, and then so we got it at that 4:30 slot, and it wasn't going well, and then last minute, bang, 9 teams. So it filled up. You just had to be patient.
And you kind of answered my question here partially. I was going to ask about what time frame you shoot to get 8 ends in down. It sounds like 6:30, 8:30, so you're hoping to have it all done in 2 hours there. We're getting in the weeds here, so we don't need to dwell on it too much, but I was curious about ice logistics. Do you assign, I know some clubs assign people, like teams, like, hey, you guys are the ones that are going to pebble and nip tonight or whatever. In some clubs like us, it's usually we have like a league manager, and they're the one that makes sure that the ice gets pebbled and nipped, which usually means that they go do it, ahead of time. We do 6 end games, and we don't pebble and nip between them. So you'll actually go 12 ends on a sheet without it getting maintained. So if you're on the late draw, your last couple ends sometimes start to suffer a wee bit. But not so great, but we switched to RO water and stuff, so we get harder pebble on there now. So it's improved a lot here for the play quality in Minot with some of those changes. But just wondering how you guys handle that kind of league maintenance. We're all on the leadership here too, and care about those things.
So a lot's changed for us for one reason, is that we finally it's gotten to the point where it was too much for volunteers for this place, like the rentals and things like that. So the club sat down and had a visit about that. And so we hired a full-time manager for 6 months a year. And so that's me. And so that's kind of what I do for a living now from the 15th of October until the middle of April, essentially. So I kind of manage those transitions between those leagues. There's only one where we don't pebble between, and nobody's complained. So I guess we'll leave it that way. But everything gets a pebble and a nip before they play, and so that's how we're doing it. So I'm kind of humping around there, and I'm not implying it's just me. Lots of guys are pitching in and helping. But, I kind of coordinated each night and pull somebody out of the crowd or whatever you do to give you a hand with getting that done.
Well, I'm looking at your schedule too, 6 nights a week you're curling. So, Dan, you got more than a full-time job. Yeah. That's
it's been busy. And that's Saturday is there's lots of people here Saturday. And the one thing that's kind of taken off here is just rentals, right? So company Christmas parties, team building things with corporations. We get a lot of base groups. And so it just, and they're there during the day because we're curling at night. And it was just getting really hard. We were having to turn people away. So,
that's us too. Yeah, we do turn people away. If they contact and they want like a Tuesday afternoon, and like unless they know a club member who's going to like come facilitate it for them, we're like, no, we're all volunteers. We got day jobs. So
it was always awkward because we sort of positioned it that way that you kind of got to know somebody. Well, if someone calls and they don't know anything about curling, how are they going to find somebody? And then, the answer is no. And it just really didn't sit well with us to do that. So so being able to do those rentals kind of helps toward paying somebody a salary, and that kind of goes toward that.
It is. We're right at the same. We're just a little bit smaller, but you're running into the exact same issues that we have here. If we got any busier, we'd be in about that same boat.
Well, we have gotten busier. This year we added like the prairie grid stuff. We're doing adaptive curling. Clay added youth curling. We're doing that on Sundays. We touched on that. And I have a military league on Tuesdays. So we have stuff here typically 5 or 6 nights a week as well. We've been very not fortunate this year. I haven't gotten much rental requests this year. I think it's because we're between Olympic cycles.
We had to start filtering them a little bit too. I had to start filtering a couple of the incoming messages going in, more or less going like it's the same thing. We simply don't have time to cover every single request.
No, it is unfortunate. Yeah.
So. So you applied 6 days, and it's 7.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of help. I don't mean to imply that's not the case. It absolutely is. So.
Just because the clubs are so similar here, we're getting into quite into the details, but we actually have the opportunity too. How often do you scrape?
So we scrape every day that there's leagues. These Sunday ones, depending on when I scraped last, sometimes I'll just do a pebble, and it's been fine, I think. I scraped today just because I wanted to. I don't know. I wasn't going to sit down and watch the football game, and I was bored, so I thought I might as well just scrape. So we scrape every day ahead of our leagues, and so we get a lot of that.
Okay.
How often are you typically putting floods on?
So we put one on. So we started November 1. We put one on. We stretched it out till the middle of December. We put one on then, and I'm going to do one probably Tuesday night this week, and then I'll do one on right before a men's bonspiel in the middle of March.
So you're going like 6-8 weeks, huh?
Yeah, at the most. It's probably, if you're going to pick an average, it's about 5 or 6.
I'm questioning here on, on ice logistics too. One of them for us is, we end up doing more flooding than we would like to because our building isn't insulated. And so, a lot of times we get frost off of one wall. Like right now, sheet one over here that touches the wall has got a hill on it because the frost came off and it keeps coming off this time of year.
Right.
What's your guys' facility like over there? I thought I had heard that you guys had moved into a new home a few years back. Am I on there? Am I off?
No, you're 100% right. So we talked about it for years. Everybody always does. And then so in April of 2016, we didn't have very much money, and we just started tearing stuff down and thinking, well, we'll figure it out. And so we started curling in a new building in January of 2017. And then so the new building is right on the same footprint as the old building.
Okay.
Because we didn't have a lot of money, we recycled quite a bit of stuff. So the concrete floor that's on our under our ice is the same concrete floor that was in the old building. The guys in the club back in the 60s, they put that floor in, and I'm knocking on wood as I say this, but it hasn't moved, and it's served us really well. So we just tore down around it and built a new club around that thing. So we robbed about 10 feet on the north end of our building, and everything else is in the same place as the old building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's and then so we've got it. It was pretty shoestring, as I alluded to. And then so we're making improvements all the time. So a few years ago, we spray foamed the ice house area and then put tin up. And so our ice house is really tight. And so we don't get frost coming in off the wall like you're talking about, but we get plenty of frost. And that's going to be our next major purchase, I think, is dehumidification, just to try to deal with that. So, but from that perspective, otherwise, we're pretty lucky. It's a pretty solid building, very solid floor, and we don't have a lot of grief that way.
And in my understanding, you mentioned dehumidification, that it's only worth it to dehumidify if your building is insulated in the first place, I would assume.
So I guess I've spent a lot of time looking into this, and I've got people talking to me. There's a couple other ice makers that are really interested, and they've got a few theories on how that stuff works. And the fact that a building isn't insulated necessarily might actually be a good thing, in that if you could pressurize that building a little bit, then everything's leaving your building all the time, including your heat, which that's not a good thing necessarily, but that moisture's leaving the building, and that might actually be the best case scenario in that situation. So our tight building that is super tight, there's no other word to use, is probably a blessing and a little bit of a curse in that perspective.
Gotcha. I mean, that dehumidification is something that we've tossed around here, and we haven't pulled the trigger on it, but just because of the issues we have with the condensation on the walls, it's something we've been focused
on trying to get our building insulated and maybe getting some traction with that. I don't know what your guys' ownership is. We're here on the state fairgrounds in Minot,
yep.
So we got to work everything through them, which, takes a while because they have to run it through the legislature, and that's every 2 years. So if you don't get it, it's hurry up and wait again.
And that's a rare one too. I mean, they really do not they're pretty much self-sufficient at the state fair. So asking the legislature for funds for them is the very worst case scenario in their eyes.
We're on park board land, but we own the building. So any improvements you want to make is our call, but it's on our dime as well. So
Yep.
Yeah, it's not all good, no matter what your structure is. There's give and take, right?
There's no perfect scenario. That's true.
Well, where are we going?
All right, on. Yeah, well, I mean, while we're talking facility and stuff too, let's tell us a little bit of club history. What you might know. How long has the Grand Forks Curling Club been around, and how's it progressed kind of through the...
Nolan's leading you here too, Dan. I have a tidbit on your guys' website. I was doing a little bit of research, and it said incorporated 1914 was the first records. I went to the Library of Congress because I've done this for the Minot Club and did a newspaper search for Grand Forks curling, and I saw you guys incorporated 1912.
There you go. Okay,
yes. I don't know anything past that though. I read like through 1920, and your guys' story was so similar to Minot's. I actually think some of the same people, were involved in starting both of those clubs, over 100 years ago. Yep.
So they were out in the fairgrounds, as I understand it, at one time, and then they and it was, I think, under what you might call a hay shelter. So it was mostly outdoors, but it did have a roof, which is probably quite a leap in technology at the time, right? But, and then they built the old building that we're right on this footprint where I'm sitting now, and that was in the 60s. I want to say 62 or something like that. And that building, it was small, and it was one story, and we thought, it was obviously needed something, but once we started tearing into it, it was in bad shape. There was dead animals in the roof, and a lot of the beams were completely rusted through. So we were in worse shape than we thought at the time. And but in terms of the history of it, that's 1962 or something like that was when we kind of got going in a dedicated facility. And I think they had a lot of history from that perspective, in that the Barkums were curlers here back in the day, and Don Barkum and his brother, they won World Juniors, and their dad, Dr. Barkum, he was ended up being the president of the World Curling Federation, and so they were really involved in that. We've had some other curlers as well. There's a fellow by the name of Larry Johnson. He left us here a few years ago, so we really miss him. But he won the World Men's a few times. He was the U.S. representative in when it was held in Bismarck. So if you remember, I can't remember what year it was. It was about 2004 or something like that, or maybe three. And so he was the U.S. representative there. So they did really well, and he never started curling until he was late in life. I think he might have started curling as a senior, and just an athletic guy, and just really took to it. So,
which event was that in Bismarck again?
They held both nationals, I thought.
No, it was the World Curling men's, and then they had the senior men's at the same time.
Okay.
So they had the men's in the what do you guys call the facility downtown?
The Civic Center.
The Civic Center. Yeah. Thank you. That's where the men's was, and then the seniors was in the curling club.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense, because that's after that event was held. That's really when curling really picked up in Bismarck and became super popular. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So that's kind of some of the bigger names. We have some families that have been here from sort of the beginning and always been important to us. So the Satrom family, they've been around our curling club for a long time, and we've really appreciated them and kind of going from there. So it's been a long time, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of people go through your doors over 100 years. So we're happy to have known them, certainly.
Absolutely. And I'm noticing a trend here between Minot, Williston, Grand Forks. It seems all of us, fairgrounds must have been the place to build a club at the time.
Yeah.
If you ever been to Williston's club, it's pretty much a carbon copy of Minot's.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's so funny too, the years there as well, because this building, the story I tell, and this may be off a year or two, but 1958 they funded and broke ground, and they completed in 1961 in the facility. We're still into this day. I guess we were fortunate, work at the fairgrounds, and we have a nice club, 2-story with the clubhouse up here, that classic curling layout, I'd say, but room for 6 sheets, but we only run 5. And a lot of our stuff is, it's been replaced over the years too. The fairgrounds has kept the building in great shape, so we're now don't have any structural issues, but we're on the hook for all the plant stuff, and so we've gone through, and after the flood here, in 2011 too, we put in a new floor after that, so we're on our second floor. It's not perfect. There's a big clay deposit under sheet 5, I think, because it always heaves, but other than that, it's just maintenance, keep upkeep, and try not to have big breakdowns. So
and I don't know why we didn't get on to fairground land, or why the history of that, why we left it. That's long before my time. But we're on park board land, and so that's kind of a happy medium, because I know Bismarck, for example, they're on park board land, but the park board, I think, owns their building, so they've got a lot more, probably this sort of the situation you guys are in, where you're you want to do something, it's not really necessarily your right to do it.
We're a little more autonomous than them, but yeah.
I'm curious to ask, just being the fact that you guys are on park board land, are you a member of the Grand Forks Parks District? Do they help you run events and things like that? Or are you just a sole operation?
We're a sole operation. They're gracious enough to run their equipment in front of the building to pick up the snow.
Right.
And beyond that, we're kind of our own deal.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
That's how we are with our own park district. No direct affiliation with we did run youth curling registration through them as kind of our trial, because I think in the Twin Cities there are a number of clubs that are rec programs.
Yep.
They get a lot of I'll subsidize the programs, allow them to really build up their facilities. Also, there's a lot more people. But
how did that work for you this year?
What was that?
How did that work for you this year?
Oh, very good. It was just we use their registration system. I mean, currently at our club, Wes and I have to build all the forms, handle the registration ourselves from that one. We get it done, but we are by no means professionals at it.
And advertising too. They have established channels that people check, and for us getting the word out, we got to pay to like advertise on the radio or the paper or something,
Well, that was one of the big reasons we started this, was just try a different avenue of really getting events out.
100%. Yep.
So
we were wondering about that, maybe looking at doing something more through their system. They put an ad in their book, but it's just that they still come register with us and
going.
Yeah, we're starting small on that one. We're just doing the kids registration sign up. I mean, one of the big ones, and it's a question I wanted to ask anyway. But the way that we have to do the USA curling registration, get all the info for that one. That's part of the nuances that makes our registration difficult. But the other one is we only charge one lump sum per curler, and you can curl as many nights a week as you want. Do you have a similar setup there?
We have a membership fee, which is the lion's share of their dues, and then it's $40 for each league that you're in on top of that. So, so if you're in two leagues, you're paying a little more than the guy in one league. But honestly, for us, we're kind of getting to the point now where if a guy's playing in three leagues, you're kind of so we're getting. I'm going to sound like a terrible capitalist at this point, but we're getting $80 extra from him being in two extra leagues more than the one, whereas that could be two new members, and
sure,
and so that's the one thing is that there's lots of people you don't want to say no, but at some point we want to make sure we have enough room for everybody. So.
Well, I like that too. I actually was writing that down. We've talked about changing our membership model to go towards like you pay per league or something, but I think your guys is a happy medium, and I hadn't considered that before, having a membership fee and then also a league fee. And I like your point there too. If you're capped up on space, you don't want to take a spot from somebody curling 3 nights when maybe you could bring in that new person, and we're not quite there yet, but
Yeah, a membership is like $225 and then $40 per league after that.
Yeah, real close to us. We're after the fees and the USCA, we're about $320 for an individual curler, I want to say.
Okay.
Non-novice,
non-novice. We have the novice rate, which is like right shy of $200, I think, for the first year. We talked before about my military league too. We hit them for less, but
Right.
Yep.
Now these mini leagues, we just do and it basically worked out to be about $10 a night, like you're talking about. But I'll charge them 50 or 60 depending on how many nights.
Yeah.
We're on that up front, and then so we used to have a 50% discount for a new member, and we stopped doing that, and because I just don't feel like that it worked that well. I don't think someone
that wasn't what was stopping them. Yeah,
and that isn't what was stopping them. Exactly right. So we've got a little bit of a bump in that just because we're charging some of these newbies more. And the other thing, I think, I went to a symposium in Winnipeg last spring, and they talked about how if you have that discount, you're kind of setting the guy's expectations, and then next year you want double that.
Yeah.
And
they go, well, I'm not going to have twice as much fun. I'll just not go. I can see people doing that.
Whereas if it was 200 and some odd right out of the gate, maybe it would be easier. So it'll be interesting to see next year what happens with our new curlers. I know we lost a lot of them in the past.
Do you guys have school rates? That's another discount we give. We if you're a high school student or a college student, actively enrolled full time, we have a reduced rate, and I think it's the exact same as our novice rate is what we do with it.
Yeah, we're 50% off for a social membership, a college kid, or a high school kid.
Yep. Okay. Great. Right.
Yep.
All right. Cool. What about what's some events and stuff that you run throughout the year as well? And obviously, you got a really busy league schedule. It sounds like being there quite a few nights out of the week.
The leagues are busy. We on the weekends we're doing a lot of these rentals, as I talked about. So companies coming in doing them. Lots of base groups. Probably the one that's the most unique for us now is the last 2 years in the fall, in September, starting about that second week. There's a group of people come in and they transform the building, and what their group is called TAG, and that stands for the Art of Giving. So if you're an artist in the upper Midwest and you paint I'm going to sound like a total redneck. If you paint a picture, that's a terrible way. If you produce a piece of art, I think it's a challenge to find a vehicle to sell it, where someone that's of that mind that would like something like that, putting them together is not easy. So this group has put together an art show essentially, and so they come into the club, and they the first year we were very uneasy because they take everything down, like every sort of one of our pictures of our members and all that stuff, and they file it away nice, and they do a good job of that, but it's all gone, and they've got I think 300 some odd pieces of art that's for sale on one night a couple weeks later. And so that's been a unique thing for us. And then in the same vein, right after that, they have they're trying to build a children's museum here, and so they have a traveling museum sort of show that they set up, and they run it for a month. So kids come through here. I think they thought there was 7,000 people came through in each of the last 2 years for those two events. And so that really eats into our fall, and it's kind of eaten into our ice install, so we'd have to tear that down quick as we can just to get going in time for our leagues and stuff like that. But it's different, and it's unique, and it gets a different type of people in here that might not be here otherwise. So it's been really fun and unique, and I think a good deal.
I was going to wonder too, regular curling events, right? I obviously, my ignorance, have not been to your guys' Grand Forks Club there. If I was going to try and catch a spiel, do you have some that are maybe more high performance focused? You guys do cash spiels? Do you have, my favorite bond spiel in Minots are end of year, the shirt sleeve. You're familiar with it if you've curled in Minot.
I am, yeah.
And that's a social spiel, right? We don't give cash prizes. It's Morelli's sweatshirts and stuff. We get a band. Right. What's the lay of the land out there for annual bond spiels?
Yeah, and so for our other events and our bond spiels, we do a few weddings over the summer out in the ice house, part of it, as well as a different sort of thing. And then getting to the bond spiels, we've always had junior spiels kind of sporadically when kind of reach out to the folks in Winnipeg. So there was years there where we'd get a ton of junior curlers come down for a junior spiel. And then COVID kind of sort of kicked that back a little bit. So we're working on building that back up. But we have a traditional women's bond spiel in the middle of February. And so that's coming up pretty quick. So finding a regular, just women's bond spiels is kind of getting increasingly difficult. So that's one thing we do that's a little bit unique. And then we have our big one, which is our men's one in the middle of March. And so that's been, I think last year was the 70th annual, except for COVID, of course. And so that's the other one. And then we do another one that's going to be this coming weekend. It's just an open spiel. And we were trying to just differentiate a little bit. So it's 2 days. We're going to curl Friday night and all day Saturday, and then you'll be done. And so we'll fire through that as quick as we can. But that's gone well the last few years and fills up real quick. I think as people have registered for our spiels, we're always a little bit, come on, I wish you'd sort of get off dead center and say you're coming or not. And then last minute, everybody shows up and you wonder what you're worried about. But on some of these, you're starting to get people trained a little differently, that if they're going to come, they register nice and early, so you kind of know where you're standing on that. So that's our three big ones that we have with respect to spiels themselves.
All right. And so you mentioned you have your women's spiel in February and then the men's spiel mid-March and stuff like that. My question was, because we had an episode with Mark Hildahl, which I'm sure you've ran into Mark.
I know Mark. He was my dentist when I lived in Minot. And then I used to see Mark quite a bit at hockey games, but it's been a while since I've seen him there.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
We had an episode of him just kind of talking about the history of our shirt sleeve bonspiel and other bonspiels that happened at the club, and he mentioned kind of the way of like cash spiels and things like that. So I was curious to see, do you run your men's spiel as like a cash spiel, or is it more of a social spiel where you come and winners win prizes as opposed to a pot of money?
Yeah, no, so it's a pot of money, just I think to keep it simple. But, it's not a big pot of money. And that's one thing it really seems like bonspiels are sort of separated. You're either running one that's kind of I'll use the term big time, where it's big dollars and you start to get, more competitive curlers.
Yep.
Or it seems like the bonspiels have kind of gone away from much in the way of prizes at all. And your goal is to give your curlers an experience that they enjoy coming and have fun. And, if they win something, it's, they're going to get their dues back certainly and do a little bit more than that, but you're not winning thousands of dollars anymore.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what Mark had said too. It's just like those big cash spiels were starting to be really tough to run because you're almost chasing local curlers away as opposed to.
Well, and his point was it changed the culture, and I think, I wasn't there when they started doing cash spiels, but, seeing our club and we're social focused, right? I like that atmosphere. I like that side of the sport. And that's something we've struggled with in Minot, is providing more of a high performance atmosphere for those that want to pursue it. And I think we're getting better, but, having a cash spiel and stuff like that, I think would go a long way towards, supporting those people. But
do you get a lot of Canadian teams down, by the way, for your larger spiels?
Yeah, so for that men's bonspiel, pre-COVID, it was a lot of Canadian teams, and then they're coming back now. So we're probably about half teams from Winnipeg.
Oh,
that's
really?
Great! Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're still struggling to get the Canadian teams down
post-COVID.
Yeah, post-COVID. Yep.
Yeah, it's a good time, and they come to town and they whoop it up pretty good, and we try to put on a show with good ice and a good atmosphere and that type of thing, and they seem like they appreciate it because there's guys that have been coming to that spiel for 30 years.
Yeah, but those kind of you mentioned whoop it up. I was going to ask about the women's bonspiel too. Do you have a lot of tired male volunteers that feel like they need to take a week off after that? Because I'm in that boat, and I think Clay might be in the same boat because we got the late bar shifts for the women's spiel that just happened here, and I think I could sleep for about 12 days now.
Yeah. So how many teams did you guys have for that?
Just a dozen. It's fairly new bonspiel.
Fourth year. Yeah.
Fourth year that they've done it. So it's just small 12-team bracket this year.
And ours is, it used to be kind of that 16 pre-COVID, and now it's probably about a dozen. And so they went through it. I think they might even be done Saturday night too. Mm-hmm. So people can. But it's not a rockin'. I don't feel like it's a kind of a gong show, if that's the term. But they definitely have their fun, and after any bonspiel, Monday always is a long day. No doubt.
Oh yeah.
Well, we gotta get your ladies hooked up with our ladies too, and get them going back and forth. I think that'd be great. Yeah. We got gals here. Again, that one's more of a social spiel, but we got gals here that are I don't know if their goal is high performance curling, but they're getting darn close to that class. So I think it'd be fun to get them going back and forth.
One of our leagues, our Tuesday night at 7:00 league, is a women's league, and it's over full. It's got 9 teams, and it's been going for a long time, and it's kind of a going concern. So I don't know how many clubs have true women's leagues anymore.
Yeah, we don't. Ours are all open leagues. Yeah.
We talked about it, but it ends up just robbing from the other nights. We logistically couldn't make it work and fill enough women's only teams when you have, we just operate mixed. Throughout the week. Right. But do you have dedicated men's leagues, or is it mixed for the others?
Well, and that's been a bit of a debate, because our Thursday night open league was kind of the only true open one we had. And then everything else, the women's league was on Tuesday, that I mentioned, and everything else was men's. And then so teams that Thursday night has been the one league that's been full for as long as I can remember, to the point where you're turning people away. And then so we've been trying to find slots, and we've considered changing some of these men's leagues to being more of an open thing, so that you could accommodate everybody. But that Thursday afternoon one is an open league, and that seems like it's taking the pressure off of that part of it for now anyway. And I guess we'll see. But Monday, both draws on Monday are men's league. Tuesday, that's an open in the afternoon. These afternoon ones have solved a lot of our problems in that regard.
Sure.
And then on Wednesday, there's 3 leagues, and it's 98% men. We wouldn't say no to a woman. In fact, my daughter curls with me in one of them, but there's not very many women in those three leagues. So we may have to take a look at that at some point about making some changes in that regard. So
sure thing. I mean, what are we in our club? Are we about 75% men, 60% men?
No, I put my foot in my mouth last year doing that one. We're probably over 40 now, because last year it was 40% female going through the registration.
Yeah, that
list.
sounds about right.
And that's skewed because I think, we've got people that curl multiple nights. So you might see more guys out there doing 2 or 3 nights, but, and there's gals that do that though too, so hard to tell, but yeah, we'd have to go look down and sit at it. But approaching half, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
I think a big part, pardon me, big part has been the women's bonspiel that they started up, and that's bringing more women into the sport at our club, because it was hard to get them at the Learn to Curls before. It was hard to get people at them in general, but
it's almost giving them more of a reason to sharpen their skills, because they can go home with a neat little trophy and surprises.
Yeah, we almost had a first year team. we were talking earlier. We almost had a first year team win this year, so it was really something to see.
Team and those first years out of mine.
A Williston team came in and ended up winning, but there was a first year women's team from Minot that went all the way to the championship.
To an extra hand too.
Yeah, extra hand.
Like low 20s. I think they're all physical therapists or something, work at Trinity. Yeah, so athletic group of young gals out there. So
and so we're doing Learn to Curls. We'll do like 3 or 4 a season, and I guess if we ever felt like there was more demand, we'd do more, but. We've always done them Sunday afternoons. So I tried one on a Friday night here a while back, and it was okay, but it wasn't bursting at the seams by any means.
So Dan, I got one here, and this is kind of a two-parter. We had talked before about the military stuff there, and what I want to ask is about rentals out there. We've always thought about raising our prices, and we did raise our price here. So now our minimum rental rate is $300 to get in the door. What are you guys charging out there for your rentals? What do you usually do for your rentals? Like, obviously if you have different groups, you kind of modify it a little bit for us, depending on how, social they want to be, or how much they just want to learn about curling, how much time you're actually spending on the ice. What does that look like for you? How have you grown that with the Air Force Base, word of mouth? Who are these people coming in, and what does the structure look like when you do a rental?
So for a kind of an afternoon rental, we position as sort of 3 hours, and that'll be 2 hours on the ice, and you could roughly break it into an hour of how-to and then an hour of games, and then basically an hour in our lounge kind of bragging on who beat up on whoever else. So that's generally how it is. If it's a Christmas party or something like that, then they're probably going to want some more time after in the evening. Mm-hmm. And then from the perspective of how much, it varies a little bit. If it's an orphanage, I'll charge less. And if it's somebody else, we'll probably get to a more standard rate. But
you guys don't have a fixed one?
We've always done that as well. I mean, we had to kind of tighten it down with the number of requests, but same thing.
Yeah. We have a minimum of $200 to basically host anything.
Yep.
And then after that, what I'll do is I really resist the theater pricing model where it's per person. Yeah. So I'll kind of get them to give me an estimate of what they expect would attend, and then they'll say 20 people, and then in my head, I'll do some quick math, and I'll charge them about $400. So it's ish $20 a person, and then if 15 show up, that's on them. I don't say $20 a person to them. I give them a number. You're paying us $400 or $600 or whatever the number would be, and then after that, their attendance is on them, and that's I think worked pretty well, and it seems like it's a value. I had a guy ask about it the other day, and he goes, "Oh, same as bowling," and so we must be close, I think, on our numbers.
We use that phrase all the time, actually, for selling it. When people look at the price, we go, well, you average it out, it's the same as bowling for our leagues, or cheaper. And the other part there too, talking about how many people, we do a per head rate, once they get over like 20 people, we kind of start charging per head, but that's because of instructors for us. Again, all volunteer ran over here. So, if you have 50 people, I need more instructors to do your guys' Learn to Curl before you get your game in, whatever you're going to do, game or shootout. And so that determines really on our end how much work we have to put in. Like, yeah, I'm not spending more money on utilities because you had 50 versus 15, but it's more of a hassle for us to get the volunteers. They're giving up their time, and we just want to get more back for the club if we're going through that extra work. So.
Yeah, for sure. So that's kind of how we handle it. Sounds very similar.
Yeah, similar pricing, similar reasoning. So just I like it. Our logic must be sound then, right? So
right, I think so.
Yeah. Well, you got much else for questions, boys? We've been chatting a while here. This is a good talk.
Anything we missed, or anything that you'd like to touch on, or anything like that?
Well, the only thing I meant to talk about when I lived in Minot and I was curling, and when I first moved to town, I thought, well, I should check out the curling rink. So I went down there, and it was October, and the place wasn't really opened up yet, although there was a dark figure at the far end of the rink with a hose in his hand, and he was flooding, so he was getting ready for it. And then we talked for just a couple minutes, and he asked where I was from, and I told him, and he looks at me and goes, "Oh, you might know me." And so it was Bob Labonte. Right?
Little Bob.
Yeah, so then when I grew up, everybody knew of Bob Labonte where I was from. So I get on the phone after I left there, and I called, I don't know how many people to say, "Hey, guess who I just met?" And, so that was my first experience with curling in Minot, was getting to meet Bob Labonte. So
God, we got to get him on the cast sometime.
Yeah, he'll be one of them. I still get his mail in the P.O. box every now and then.
Bob.
That's awesome. Well,
thanks for the story.
One question too. Just bringing up a good memory about curling in Minot. One question we ask some new guests is, looking back at curling. You've done it for many years. What's one of your favorite memories that you have, or favorite stories you have about curling? Now, we typically prefer it to be an embarrassing one, or embarrassing about clay, because we have a lot of local members that have some pretty good stories about clay. Obviously, you're not going to have any good stories about clay. So what's one of your fondest curling memories over the years that you've been part of the sport?
I kind of go back to it as I'm getting older. I'm appreciating it more because I get to do it with my kids. And so, when my kids were curling juniors, we traveled, there was a kind of a period of time in there where the juniors were all over the place. My oldest daughter, her first one was in Devil's Lake, then Fairbanks, Alaska, then Boston, Massachusetts, then I think it was Wisconsin, then it was Seattle, and then I think her last year was Devil's Lake again. And so she kind of bookended it nicely. But you got to go and see a lot of things and meet a lot of people that I still interact with today on different levels, and so that part, it's the family part of it for me. We're going to go into Bonspiel that I talked about, this open one this weekend with my all three of my kids will be here at it, and their my daughter's husband and another daughter's boyfriend. They're all curling together in it, and so it's that's been the best part for me, and I've appreciated it more as I've got older.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about the curling community. Like you said, you can travel almost all over the world, and everyone seems to be very like-minded when it comes to the sport. It's just friendly, nice, easy to talk to strangers.
Spirit of curling. Yep. It seems like it's got around. Yep.
And then for us, to me, the thing that I think I have the most. That I remember the most fondly was when we built this building. Like I say, we didn't have any money. We had $300,000 cash that we had saved up and got the donations. And then we have a pretty blue-collar club in that it's a lot of construction-type guys. And so they did a lot of in-kind stuff. And then there was a bank here in town, First State Bank. For some reason, they give a loan on a curling club that was on park board land that they could never repossess if we didn't pay them. And so it was, $300,000 of cash, $300,000 of in-kind stuff, and then $300,000 of a loan, and there's like 350 of each of those. But it was just over $1 million. A lot of recycled stuff, as I talked about, and a lot of stuff that wasn't done that we've done since. But it was one of the guys likens it to it's the way something got done in small towns, 30 years ago.
Yep.
That anymore you have to have a fund drive, and it's got to be $20 million sitting in a bank account somewhere, and blah blah blah. And so everybody really pulled together, and when we needed money, we'd start calling people and they'd give you something. So it was the way we got it done. The fact that we did get it done was probably a miracle in hindsight, but got lightning in a bottle a little bit there. And and it's sure gone well since then.
That is really amazing what you got that done for. I mean, some of the prices that we looked into, I believe the Fargo Club, when that was built, was probably this is how bad I could be off by millions of dollars here.
Yeah.
I think it was $6 million
I was
for a
going to
brand
say
new one out
5.
there.
Yeah, that's what I had to remember.
So yeah, that's unbelievable that you guys got that.
If we'd have put a new floor in,
yeah, good point.
I think the building, or I think the bid at that time was like $650,000. You know, a parking lot across the street. I mean, a lot of people don't think about stuff like that, but if you went out somewhere else and you got to put a parking lot in, that's, you know, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's one wall in here. I'm looking at it right now. It's the windows in that wall are the same windows that was in the old building, because it was $20,000 worth of windows.
Yeah,
sure.
So we cut a lot of corners on that stuff. Not anything that affected us long term or took away from its effectiveness, but it just if it wasn't us doing it, it would have been unreasonable to ask a contractor to say, hey, please be careful digging around this floor. Could you just sort of chip at it real nice and easy and not wreck anything? You know what I mean? So because we had, you know, curlers that were working with an excavating company, they were happy to do that, and that worked out. We built a great big box around our plant because our plant was new from when the Worlds was here at the Ralph. We made some money on that, so we put a new plant in there. So it's the same plant that was in the old building, and there was a big box around it for 8 months or whatever the heck it was until we needed to get it going. So that's why we got away with it that way. And that bank, it was, like I say, I still can't believe they did it, but they did it anyway. And so
was it First State Bank? Because I wrote them down in case we need financing someday. They're one of our calls. So.
First State Bank, yeah,
First State Bank, perfect.
Yeah, so they were, and that, you know, there wasn't really anybody that was curlers there. So that was the odd part, is that you think that a lot of times, well, there'll be some banker that curls and he talks him into it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we were pretty focused on treating them right, and we had a 15-year amortization, and we paid it off in 5. And so we're done with them in that regard, and so we're pretty happy with that, and it's given us a lot of freedom to do some of the things we're looking at doing now. So.
Yeah. Well, we'd gotten a piece of advice from a gentleman out in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Craig, and you know he had said how they managed to get funding and land secured for their new dedicated facility, and you know he was, make yourself an asset to the community, get your name out there, you know, and eventually you'll find people and they'll become a part of the club, and you'll make those things happen. You know, they had a similar story with a gentleman get involved with their club that owned the land that they purchased on contract for deed with financing you would never get at an institution, you know. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's about getting membership and doing good work out there. So, all right, well, what do we got? We saying bye?
That's probably all. And like I said, unless we missed anything, but I just want to say thank you very much for joining us and taking time out
it's great
of a busy Sunday. So we appreciate it.
Thanks for reaching out on it. It's what you guys are doing is cool because it's you know, we've talked for an hour or so. And so for someone to have to sit and listen to me for an hour at a bonspiel, they wouldn't get as many of the details as they can with something like this. So what you guys are doing is a good deal, and I really appreciate you guys including us in it, and let us know if there's anything we can ever help in that regard.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And I look forward to having you back on at a later date. Obviously, if there's anything to talk about or anything even cool, just fun stories to trade. I mean, that's, like I said, that's the best part about curling. You can chat for hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. You guys got an event too you want to plug? We can arrange that as well. You know, do
our men's bonspiel. It fills up every year, but it's fun, and it's nice to meet new people there, and it's like there's a lot of familiar faces, which is awesome. And so I would say that if people are looking for a kind of a unique experience for something like that, our men's bonspiel is a one of a kind, I would say.
You said mid-March for that, correct?
Yeah, March. It's at St. Patrick's Day, always around there. Okay. So this year it's March 15th to 17th.
Are you full up yet, or can we get a team in?
Not yet.
Okay.
We and when I'm laughing as I say that, but we've got I told you guys I'm the manager, so. And I went on about how hard my life is and blah blah blah. But we've obviously got we obviously have a lot of other people. So our guy, there's a guy named Bob Bina that he's the kind of the coordinator for this thing. And so I always tease him because he doesn't use a laptop. He's got I call it that yellow manila pad of paper that he has. He scratches notes on.
That's what I'm writing on.
I call it that his manila laptop. And so I don't honestly have a clue how many teams he's got. but he's got them all in his head, and he's got all their numbers in his head, and he'll sit down and call them, and they'll all say, yeah, and it'll be full.
I wonder if he's related to Mark Hildall.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like how Mark does things.
Well, they're the same vintage, I think. So
Okay, good. Yeah,
We always thought we'd try and improve on it until Wes and I tried to do it ourselves once.
Oh,
and
we ate so much crow.
Boy, we tried to bring that into the 21st century, and we let him have it right back
I came
again.
crawling back on my knees, and I said, Mark, please do scheduling again. I can't handle it.
Well, we did we added a registration link for that men's bonspiel, but between Bob and knowing the guys, and the guys having a lot of experience from just always calling Bob, I think there's like 3 people on there or something like that. It's probably almost a waste of time, but there's young people that like it, and so we'll try to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah,
right? So.
yeah. Well, we're doing similar over here. You know, take it both ways. So, all right. Well, thanks again, Dan. I really appreciate you sitting down talking with us. I really enjoy these so much on a personal level. So, thanks for taking the time. Yep.
Yeah, good deal, guys. If you ever get to town, look us up, please.
Yeah.
Will
sounds
do.
good.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Yep. Bye now.
Bye.
Well, we gonna put a team together for that men's bonspiel or what?
That'd be my first cash spiel.
Yeah.
So I got a brother in East Grand too.
Yeah.
So his house too small. We probably won't stay there if we go. But
We could just take the tents.
In March. Yep, let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
Well, all right.
All right, who's our 4th?
It's a men's one. I was going to say my wife. You know, we got those approaching high performance curlers. We can ask one of them. Charlie, Mitch, Ben, other Ben.
That's
you know.
actually the only weekend in March, or for the
Where
rest of the year, we don't have anything.
That's why.
Oh, we actually are free that
actually,
weekend.
the only thing we're doing is flooding that
the
week.
light bulb went off.
Okay, I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's find a 4th.
All right. Maybe we should hold tryouts. That's what we should do.
yes,
we should
yes.
hold tryouts. We'll have to incentivize them because people won't come just to be on our team. So we'll have to think of some other way to get them to try out. Like, I don't know.
Feats of strength. I like this.
One free
We
beverage.
could go back to drinking games from college. You got to
Yeah.
slam the beer, spin around the curling
gosh.
rock with your forehead, and then do a 360
360s.
slide. Yes, best 360 slide.
This is turning into like old school.
And then we'll have to do tryouts to figure out our shooting order because it'll probably end up being a team of skips.
It's
you
going to be
know?
a team.
yeah.
We're going to be bickering.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can already see the fights. It's
Play
going to be
shooting
great.
league.
Separate rooms. Get separate
Rooms,
Separate
fights.
rooms.
Wes
nobody's
is going to be calling the wrong. We're going to be curling at the wrong direction.
Oh, yeah, because we do
can't
opposite
even-
signals. Oh, man.
Nobody's gonna want to room with me because I snore.
Let's do it. I that's part of the reason we were,
know
reaching
who
out
we
to the
should
local
bring?
clubs is to promote, inter-club camaraderie. And I think that'd be great. Yeah, let's go do it. Works out in the schedule.
Tim Hoff. He's the least combative person, and he's so positive,
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's see how's 360 first.
and he's not a skip.
Is that big Tim we're talking?
I mean, he's not
medium-sized
small.
Tim.
Yeah, medium-sized Tim.
I'm thinking of a different Tim. They curls
Tim.
with Adam Nathan.
You're
and,
thinking
the
of
short
Tim
sleeve.
Beck.
Oh, Tim Beck. Yeah,
Tim the
Beck.
curls with Muse.
Yep.
Have a lefty on our team.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That actually
That's a new
is
one.
great for getting that other, sometimes that 6-inch difference really
And
does.
he just listens.
Yeah, we
You
don't
always,
do that.
No, you don't.
Well, we're going to be that team because he's got the same complaint we have about games taking too darn long because you're having, a powwow every time a shot's called. And that'll be us out there rubbing people
But we
around
also
by-
all struggle with it too. So it's just like, all right, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it.
We're
You
just
said
going to do it.
Do it.
Just going to do it. Yeah.
All right, we'll look into that. I
All
don't know.
right. We got ideas. We got ideas.
Yeah.
Well, we could fill out the registration after we hang up here. Should we do that? Say,
Let's take a look.
All right.
We'll see what it's like. All right, cool. Well, that was episode 11.
yes.
Yeah, episode 11 of Between Two Sheets. We'll be back with, I don't know, some more fun stuff. We're just going to keep it a surprise for all you viewers out
Yeah.
there. But thanks so much for joining us.
On this hour and 8-minute episode. Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye.